Good afternoon, and thank you for joining the Oregon Employment Department for today's media briefing. We're going to wait just another couple of minutes to let everybody have time to join. Thanks. All right, then. I think we've got everybody in. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Rebecca Gibson-King. I'm the Communications Director for the Oregon Employment Department. Today's speaker is Lindsay Leahy. She is the Unemployment Insurance Director, and OED, or Employment Department Director, David Gerstenfeld will be on hand at the end of the remarks in case there are any questions for him. Couple of quick notes. This call is being recorded, and we will post the recording online and send out the link as soon as possible after the briefing. We will take questions after opening remarks, and if you have any technical difficulties or are otherwise unable to get your question answered today, we are always happy to take your questions at communications@employ.oregon.gov, and we will be happy to get your questions answered for you that way. I will now turn it over to Unemployment Insurance Director Lindsay Leahy. Please go ahead, Lindsay.
Thank you, Rebecca. We are now on week 2 of launching unemployment insurance benefits in Francis Online, and I want to again thank Oregonians for their patience during this transition. Looking back on the first week, the rollout of the new technology is mostly tracking with what we expected. Most claimants have made the transition to Francis Online and are filing their claims. The extensive planning, testing, training, preparation, and collective effort that went into the launch has set us on the right path. As we anticipated, learning a new system has been easier for some than others. Call volume to the Unemployment Insurance Contact Center is high. We understand the frustration this is causing, and we are working to address customer needs as quickly as we can. We will continue to monitor the system, support customers, and make improvements as we move forward. I am confident we are headed in the right direction. At last week's briefing, we shared some preliminary data through Tuesday, March 5th. We now have preliminary data for the rest of last week that indicates the system is working for most people. We received over 30,200 weekly claims for the week of March 3rd through March 9th. Looking at some historical numbers for reference, we received 34,330 weekly claims for the same week in 2023 and 27,637 weekly claims in 2022. We also paid out approximately $11.2 million in benefits last week. This compares to $14.8 million in benefits paid for the same week in 2023 and over $11.3 million in 2022. This data is still preliminary, and the fluctuating nature of weekly unemployment insurance benefits makes it difficult to set precise expectations for the numbers of claims we should expect to see in any given week. Some people may not file one week because they weren't looking for work or they found a job. We also typically start seeing fewer claims around this time of year when seasonal work opens back up. This is one of the reasons we have used year-over-year data for comparison. With that said, we did anticipate that the number of weekly claims and total benefits paid may dip the first week as people learn the new system. And that might be a contributing factor to the lower numbers we saw last week. It's simply too early to tell. Because the new system is more flexible, we've been able to pivot quickly and fine-tune Francis Online. We improved language to make the registration process easier to navigate and clarified the options and process for identity verification, which is a key security feature. To accommodate those that weren't able to create their Francis Online account last week, we are giving more time to file weekly claims for the weeks ending on February 24th and March 2nd. We are also encouraged to see that thousands of claimants who initially ran into challenges have since created accounts and filed weekly claims, filed initial claims, or restarted their claims in the new system. We are also encouraged by the preliminary data measures that we are seeing this week. Through yesterday, we have received over 28,000 claims this week, and we have paid out approximately $10.9 million in benefits, which is an increase over what we saw in the preliminary numbers for Monday and Tuesday last week. However, we also know that any disruption to benefits for whatever reason can cause stress and anxiety for claimants. That's why we have been actively communicating the multiple ways that customers can file their weekly claims. We are seeing that people are using the multiple customer service options in Francis Online, such as web messaging in their account, the Contact Us form, live chat, and our chatbot. That said, as we anticipated, we are seeing a high volume of people reaching out to us to talk to an agent, and people are experiencing a longer wait time than we would like to see. Most people, a little over 80%, filed a weekly claim online last week. On average, customers spent about 9 minutes filing a weekly claim on a mobile device and just under 11 minutes filing a claim on a desktop or laptop. We want to stress that if someone is unable to file a weekly claim online, they can still use the automated weekly claim line. That number is 800-982-8920. The process of filing for unemployment insurance itself involves providing detailed information. It also requires things like identity verification, that the person has worked enough hours and earned enough in wages to be eligible, and that they follow various eligibility requirements each week that a person is seeking benefits. So some people might be eligible one week, but not eligible the next week. This can add a layer of uncertainty for individuals who are already dealing with the loss of employment. Aside from creating their Francis Online account, customers are reaching out about a few specific things. The first item is that weekly claims are being flagged for eligibility reasons. This typically occurs when somebody provides us with information that indicates that they are not eligible for benefits when they file their weekly claim, such as telling us that they didn't look for work last week. We have also learned that some people are inadvertently telling us that there is an eligibility issue when there actually isn't one. We encourage people to take their time answering the weekly eligibility questions each week. It's a new system and the questions do look a little different. It is taking customers about 10 minutes to file a weekly claim, but we ask that you give yourself more time so that you can review the answers on the confirmation screen before clicking the submit button. If you have questions as you move through the screens, you can check out our how-to guides, videos, and other resources. A couple of examples are indicating that they are not available for work for the week that they're claiming, or saying that they were away from their permanent residence for more than 3 days last week. If a question is answered in a way that could make them ineligible for benefits that week, they will likely receive an online questionnaire in the Action Center of their Francis Online account, and they will need to quickly respond online. In the old system, this process typically happened over the phone. The process could delay benefits for that week while we complete our review, but customers should continue filing weekly claims. Depending on the specific issue, customers could receive payments for subsequent weeks that they claim while they wait for us to adjudicate the possible issue that was on that 1 week. Another item is questions about claim status, specifically the suspense status. This typically means that a claim needs to be more closely reviewed to ensure the customer is eligible for benefits. This process is called adjudication. Customers can find out more about the adjudication process at unemployment.oregon.gov/adjudication. If a claim is in suspense, customers should check their Action Center in Francis Online for possible requests for information, and then respond quickly to those requests. If there is nothing in the Action Center, then you don't need to do anything further, other than continue to claim each week that you are seeking benefits. Another item is letter IDs. Some active claimants were getting stuck around how to verify their identity when setting up their account in Francis Online, but we think the changes we made last week have helped. A little more detail around this item. For now, active claimants can verify their account by entering existing claim information or by receiving a letter in the mail. That letter contains a number that starts with an L that they enter on the verification screen. Customers can use the automated weekly claim line at 1-800-982-8920 to file their weekly claim over the phone while they wait for the letter. This is a separate line from our unemployment insurance contact center numbers and you would not be required to wait on hold. The last item that I want to highlight today is we have received some questions about accounts that were successfully created and then deleted. We communicated to customers prior to launch that they should wait until March 4th to create an account in Francis Online. This is because accounts created prior to launch would need to be deleted as part of the migration. For most others, accounts were not successfully created, meaning the customer didn't fully complete the account creation process. Either way, claimants can simply restart the process to create their account. As we anticipated, the Unemployment Insurance Contact Center has been busy, and we know this is frustrating for customers. A couple of observations and tips. Some customers are experiencing a learning curve with Francis Online. We encourage them to first review the videos, how-to guides, and FAQs at unemployment.oregon.gov/Francis. If they cannot get their questions answered, they can use the self-serve features in Francis Online, such as checking to see if their claim was approved for payment and making sure that they don't have anything in their action center. If they still need assistance, we recommend using the secure messaging from their Francis Online account, the live chat feature, or the chatbot at francis.oregon.gov. If customers are not able to get their question or issue resolved through all of the other channels, or if they need help in other languages, they can still call the Unemployment Insurance Contact Center to speak with an agent. The unemployment insurance program is still complex. Each week, each claim must be evaluated based on federal and state eligibility requirements. Customers should review eligibility information in the claimant handbook or at unemployment.oregon.gov. Be sure to read all the letters and messages that we send to you and follow any instructions that you might receive to make sure you are taking all the steps that you need to take each week. And remember, please check your U.S. mail regularly, since some letters need to come by U.S. mail, even if a customer selects that they prefer electronic communication. Every person's experience is going to be a little different because every circumstance is different, and each claim is considered individually. We want to emphasize that early indicators suggest the system is working for most people, and we are doing our best to make it work for more. Any disruption or delay to benefits is concerning for our customers. If a claimant reaches out to you, we do want to understand what they are experiencing. We are working to address areas that are slowing customers down and support customers in navigating Francis Online. It's also important to distinguish between the two and to determine whether reports are widespread or isolated. We still need more time to understand the big picture. Again, we are only on week 2, so we will continue listening, learning, and improving. We will also continue refining and validating data, and remembering any data shared here is considered preliminary. We are moving in the right direction. We're addressing those bumps in the road quickly and working hard to support customers by providing accurate and current information and resources. I will close today by sharing some good news. Last week, the Oregon Legislature passed House Bill 4035, which is now awaiting the governor's signature. The bill did not increase employer taxes, but instead provides some additional administrative funding to the Employment Department by diverting some of the tax dollars that were headed to our solvent unemployment insurance trust fund. This is good news for Oregonians because it will provide more support for customer service and other critical agency operations. We won't likely feel the benefit of these additional resources until at least the second half of the year, so we ask for your patience. With that, I'll turn it back over to Rebecca Gibson-King for the Q&A portion of the briefing.
Thanks, Lindsay. We're now going to open the lines to members of the media to ask questions. So if you're joining us by phone, please remember to hit *6 to unmute yourself. As a courtesy, please limit yourself to one question and one follow-up question. And if you don't get your question answered today, please email us at communications@employ.oregon.gov. And first up with her hand raised is Christina with K2. Go ahead, Christina.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking questions. So in the 30,000 claims filed this week that you mentioned, does that include people who filed claims but then remain in a suspended status? And if so, do you have any idea how many people are in that suspended status?
Thank you for the question, Christina. So the weekly claims filed are the weekly claims filed. It could include those that have eligibility issues that are in suspense, or could be that they have been paid benefits. That's why we've also provided that other the dollar amount of benefits that's paid. And so right now, I'm sorry, was the second half
How
year?
many people are in a suspended status?
Oh, thank you. So we are still validating our data. We want to make sure that what we're querying the system in our reports is what we expect it to return. The suspense status isn't a new item. So in the old system, this would be something where folks wouldn't actually have clarity into the system. They wouldn't necessarily know that their week was in suspense without talking to us. So now we're seeing that folks can see that suspended status, so they're calling to ask about it. The system is working as designed. And so, as I mentioned, there's those week-to-week eligibility requirements that people need to meet. And so when they indicate something that is a possible issue, we then adjudicate that issue. And so it might be in suspense pending that adjudication, or it might be, like I mentioned, some folks are clicking through real fast and then they're inadvertently indicating that there is an eligibility issue when there isn't, which is why we're super encouraging folks to, use those how-to guides, use the videos, double check what they're entering, just give yourself a moment to file your claim each week until you're familiar with the new system.
And it seems like you're attributing those to user errors, but is there anything that indicates this might be a software error?
So we know some people are struggling with the new system or the old system. We don't have any indication right now that there's any sort of software error or issue with the new system. But we also know that's frustrating for customers to learn a new system. There's that learning curve. Also, unemployment insurance is a complex program. So sometimes people struggle with just general eligibility requirements. And so we want to help all of those people, and we definitely acknowledge that frustration.
And just want to make sure I'm getting this right. You don't know how many people are in a suspended status. You don't know how it compares to prior numbers of suspension, but you're saying it's not a software error. Do you know why you're saying that?
So we're, I can say when we're looking at the items that are in suspense, we can see what's causing that suspense issue. For example, somebody is indicating that they weren't available for work last week. And so we can see that they went in the system, and that is what the selection that they chose. We haven't seen any indication where you have a claim that somebody didn't indicate an issue and it's throwing a flag on that claim where there wasn't something that was something that caused that suspension issue that we would have expected it to, because that's what the system is programmed to do, find those eligibility issues at week to week. And we're looking at, week over week. You've got that historical data that I provided, and then the stuff from last week and this week. And so, yeah, we don't have the validated number of how many claims are in suspense at the moment, but we are looking at those week to week historicals, what we saw last week, what we saw this week, and we can see that more customers are getting into the system, more customers are navigating the system. And so that's a great indication that people are getting in there and using the system as designed. We also are seeing less of those account issues that we were seeing last week, which is a wonderful sign. But again, I do want to just acknowledge that I know how frustrating that can be for customers when they're, you're unemployed, you're trying to learn a new system, you're trying to meet all the eligibility requirements, and it's a lift. And people struggled in the old system, and some are still going to struggle in the new system. And we want to do everything we can to help those folks.
I do have more follow-ups. I just want to be respectful of other people.
Thanks, Christina. Next up is Mike Rogaway with the Oregonian. Go ahead, Mike.
Good. I think I'm unmuted now. Is that right?
Yes.
Great. Beautiful. Lindsay, I wanted to make sure I understood something you were saying before. If I fill out my form incorrectly for my weekly claim and I indicate, for example, I wasn't available for work, that was a mistake. The questionnaire comes to me. If I understood you correctly, you said people should keep filing while they wait for the department to adjudicate the issue. Does that mean that I'm in that huge adjudication queue that's created so many problems, or is this in some parallel process that could be resolved more quickly?
Thanks for the question, Mike. So I want to start with we want to make sure that everyone, puts the most accurate information, which is why we're asking them to take a moment and make sure you're filling it out correctly. I wouldn't say it's an incorrect or a correct answer. You want to put the accurate information for what is applicable to your specific situation when you're filing. But some do cause the issue to go into suspense because we need to adjudicate if the person was or wasn't eligible. That would go into the adjudication queue, which can take can be a quick review, or it can take several weeks for us to get through, depending on a variety of things. The volume of claims that are in adjudication, the complexity of the issue itself, response times for anyone that we need to ask questions of, which is why when we put that questionnaire in there, fill it out as quickly as take the time you need to fill it out accurately, but do respond, quickly so that that lag time isn't in there too. We are, working diligently to get through all of the claims that are in suspense as quickly as we can, but we also know that we're taking longer than we would like to take to adjudicate those issues. Good news, as I mentioned, if that's what your example that you provided is that 1 week eligibility issue. So if they keep claiming each week, that 1 week would be an adjudication, but the next week, if they didn't have that inadvertent answer that they didn't mean to put, then they would, get paid on subsequent weeks.
Okay, that seems like an important point. And I'll note that when we write. So it seems to me like, it's very possible to make a mistake when you're filling this out, and it just feels like a little slip could create a big problem for yourself. And is there any reason why that little slip would be more common now than with the pre-Francis Online system?
I would say that the reason it might be more common within these first couple of weeks is because it's a new system. So people are getting familiar with the new system. We've done a lot of things to plain language and look at how things might be easier for claimants. But if you're used to claiming week over week and answering the same questions in the same way, because you know what the eligibility requirements are, you're real familiar with, what we're asking and what you did last week. You might be going through and answering the way that you thought that you were, and the new system is you're actually answering the opposite. So that's why we're asking folks to take a moment, don't try to breeze through it, and make sure that you're answering the question the way that, you intend to answer it, and fill out all the information. And then that confirmation screen, review those answers carefully, make sure that everything's accurate, because if you catch it there, you can just hit back and then go back and update the claim right there while you're claiming each week versus the eligibility issue or going through adjudication. Remember, some folks do tell us that there is an issue because there is an issue. So you have some folks that say, I wasn't available for work last week, I went on vacation. And so, I wasn't looking for work, I wasn't, but just had the habit of claiming, or they want to make sure us to review to let them know if they're eligible. We always tell folks, if you want to claim a week and you're not sure if you're eligible, claim the week and we can determine the eligibility. And so some people do that. And so then we would need to look at it to review the situation that they're in to see if it was an issue or wasn't an issue. And then we would issue a decision based on the information that we found.
Good, thank you. And then the last question from me. To some degree, it feels like I'm back in 2020 with the number of emails I'm getting and people's concerns about, number one, getting through on the phone. And I realize staffing constraints are what they are for reasons we've discussed. I'm interested in any data you can give about what the situation is with the phones right now. What is the average hold time? What is the likelihood of being able to get through?
I think that we posted last week's information on the media dashboard, and if that's not up, it'll be up at later today. But it looks like we're answering about 40% of calls within 5 minutes, 7.6% within 5 to 15 minutes. So most of the calls then are taking longer, and we definitely know how frustrating that can be. People do get busy signals, especially on Mondays when lots of people are trying to get a hold of us. And we are just encouraging folks to also use those other communication channels to help alleviate that. So we have the self-service tools where you can watch a video and you can read the FAQs and try to figure out the answer to your own question. But then we know that's not going to help everybody. So then we also have the live chat, we have the chat bot, and we have that direct messaging within Francis Online. So there's multiple options that people can use. So we encourage you to try those other options if you don't want to wait on.
Good. And I see the dashboard has posted now, and it must have just happened because I checked just before the call. Just to be clear, when you say 40% of calls are answered within 5 minutes, I presume those are 40. This is again a throwback to 2020. I presume these are 40% of the calls that got through. If you got a busy signal, then they wouldn't be counted in that stat, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And so, and like, if you look at the last week that we were open prior to the transition, we were at 44.2% in under 5 minutes. So there's still a dip, and we did bring on those extra staff using that one-time funding to help with some of this transition. And the phone calls are taking a little bit longer because people are walking folks through Francis Online, providing, additional supports with questions that folks are having. And so we're hoping that over time, that's going to reduce the length of the phone call, both learning curve for customers and employees, but then also the people start using those self-service tools and other things like that, and we'll be able to overall help people get through. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we are offering that if folks can't get through, they can still pick up those weeks for the first 2 weeks of benefits using the weekly claim line, or once they get into Francis Online.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
And Mike, if I could, I just really want to emphasize something that Lindsay pointed out, which is that we're really focused on helping people as quickly as we can, and we have been. And one of the core reasons for us modernizing is that long term, we know that this will offer a lot more self-help, a lot more functionality. Some of the things that are initially causing questions is, as Lindsay mentioned, the additional information that people can get about the status of their claims that they didn't used to be able to get under the old system. But right now we're just over, about a week and a half into the new system. So everybody that's using it is adjusting to it, which is causing the higher number of calls for them to take a little bit longer. We're feeling very good from what we're seeing in terms of our ability to adjust the system, how useful the tools are when people look at them to help them get through the process, and frankly, how quick the adoption rate has been, given that there's tens of thousands of people that are using the system each week. So we know that after this initial transition time, we'll be able to keep refining the process and have our employees respond to people more quickly. So I think the combination of the additional staffing, thanks to House Bill 4035, if that gets signed, and the increased capabilities and self-service of the system, once everybody has gotten used to it a little bit, will really let us improve the customer service levels, which is what our modernization project is all about.
Thanks, David.
Okay, Christina, we got time for one more question.
So much.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
maybe Director Gerstenfield, since you have a tech background, perhaps you could answer this question. What makes you so sure that this is not a software error when you have multiple people on Reddit threads and folks I've talked to as well saying, I did answer that they had no, I wasn't away from my job search or anything like that, but it's marking as if I were away. And this is multiple people getting the same error that's putting them in suspense. What are you using to diagnose that and to say it's not a software error?
So, Christina, to clarify one thing, I don't actually have a formal tech background, although certainly I've been involved with a lot of technology projects. One of the advantages that we have with the new system is that we have a lot more insight into what happens. So if somebody goes through and they are working through a session, we have the ability to actually see what they saw on the screen and what they clicked and what they typed. So we do follow up, and that's one of the things that we've been doing in these early days is a lot of close watching. When people have challenges, we're going back and watching the session of how they interacted with the system to make sure that the system is working correctly. It's that same tool that also allows us, even if nobody tells us about a problem, to go in and help determine if certain questions seem to be causing more confusion among some people. So there are just a lot more insights from this system, and we are able to actually validate what it is that people are selecting and what they're typing and confirm that the system is acting the way it was intended, that it is saying a claim needs to be looked at closer, based on the information that people provided us.
And so then you're finding that this is mostly user error in those situations where people are supposedly not marking anything that that would indicate they're out of town or not looking for work, but you're saying they actually are and they're just not paying attention to the question.
So I wouldn't call it a user error. I would call it a learning curve, and also emphasize something that Lindsay said, which is that there are many times where there are things that we have to look at to make sure that somebody is eligible for benefits. They may or may not be. It's just a more nuanced situation under the law as to whether they're eligible. So for instance, if somebody tells us that they were out of their labor market for most of a week, we need more information to know whether they were eligible. And there are a number of different questions that are asked, but we have not seen any indication that the system is saying something needs further review, even though the way people answered, it should not have done that. And I apologize if that was too many double negatives, but to try to restate it, we're seeing the system queue claims up for us to look at further, to look into, to adjudicate, only when there's information that's provided to us that shows that we really do need to look at it, either to confirm that the person just made an error or to get additional information to see if they're eligible for benefits for the week.
And if so many people believe they have not answered this question in the wrong way, are you reviewing those questions to make sure there's not confusing wording in them?
We absolutely are. We've already made updates to some of the wording in our system based on our ability, as I said, using some of the new tools to see how people are responding, how long it's taking people to answer questions, where it seems like there may be confusion. And again, to emphasize, there's not just one question that can cause something to go into that suspense status where we need to look at it closer. So I don't want to imply that this is all people either giving incorrect answers or making errors. I think some of it is a learning curve. As Lindsay said, we do have some people that have been claiming benefits for many weeks and kind of have that muscle memory of how you answer the questions, and things may be in a different sequence now in the new system. So there's some of that as well.
Has the Francis software been beta tested separately for paid leave and for the unemployment insurance, or was it all done in one?
We've done multiple rounds of testing for each programmatic rollout. So for paid leave, we had multiple rounds of testing. And again, for the unemployment benefits, we did multiple rounds of testing from the technical perspective, from our internal staff, and also having some members of the public use it.
Okay, I'm going to wrap it up there. If you have any more questions, either Christina or Mike or anybody else on the call, please feel free to send them to communications@oregon.gov/employee. Or no, sorry, yeah. I don't even know okay, here we go. Communications@employee.oregon.gov. There we go. That is our email address. And please send them there. We will be happy to get the questions that you have answered for you. Thank you for everybody who participated today. As a reminder, this call has been recorded and we will send the link out to everybody who RSVP'd. We will also be posting the link on the media page at www.oregon.gov/employee. That is our website address under news and agency info. Thank you for participating today and for your partnership to keeping Oregonians informed about our important services. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.